Dan, I just flew in from Colorado, and boy, are my arms tired.
Oh, here we go again with the flying in. I got it this time. But I will
Okay.
say, you do look a little exhausted.
Yeah, that traveling takes it out of you. I remember where I used to travel for work. I was always tired. Even though you're just sitting around doing nothing, it wears you out.
Yeah, and you had what, two time zone changes with that trip?
I did, and I was at high elevation, thin air, and I'm here to tell you that is no joke.
A little winded were you, huh?
Oh, yeah, I was. So when I flew to Denver, and Denver, of course, is the mile high city. And I spent the first night in Boulder at my cousin's. We had like a little mini family reunion. I have a number of cousins that moved to Colorado. So I didn't feel altitude when I was there. The next day, however, when we went to our final destination of Leadville, which is known as the 2 mile high city, I felt it, man. That is thin air. I couldn't even see straight. I was just so out of wind.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've heard that it can have like different effects on different people too, depending on,
Yeah.
certain things. I mean, my wife was out there and she noticed it a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah. My first night there in Leadville, I was a little worried because you look at the symptoms and, the massive headaches and stuff, and I was dreading. And I did have a headache. It wasn't massive, though, it was just stubborn. The second day, I'll be honest, I was feeling better, not perfect, but I was definitely better. I wasn't like going the wrong way.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, and that was tough. It's just serious. Just walking. It was on the second story of the hotel. I couldn't walk all the way up the stairs. You had to stop on the landing and catch your breath.
Well, how many flights of stairs do you normally go up in a day? You probably just out of shape.
I am a firewood professional. There's no such thing as an out of shape firewooder.
So, what were you out there for? What's give a little backstory here. How did this all come to be?
Yes, so there is the company VEPAK they're from Norway, and they make that kind of interesting looking firewood bagging packaging machine. And they were at Paul Bunyan, but there had been some discussions before all that because, like, Marty from Lepo and Bob Nelson from Yappa. So when I was appearing at the Yappa tent at the Paul Bunyan show, um, there was some discussion, and they were like wanting to know if I was around, and I I don't know if you noticed, but I kind of had a long line at the Yappa tent, and it took me a while to get away. So I finally got down there. Bob Nelson and I walked down there together because he kind of knows the importer from Canada, that Hackmet is the name of them. So when I was down there, well, I couldn't talk to the owner of VPAC, Oli. He was pulled in 1,000 in different one directions. And so we had agreed I would just I'd talk to him later. And I did talk with Kyle a little bit, who is the owner of the firewood company out in Leadville, Colorado. So we just tabled it because it was just couldn't get a
Too
hold of each
busy.
other. Yeah.
Yep.
And uh, so we had some email exchanges in the weeks that followed, and so we agreed that uh, this would be a good time to go out and visit Kyle in Colorado. So
Oh.
so I flew out and flew to Denver, and then he's about 2.5 hours up the mountain from Denver. And I hung out with him and found him to be a very interesting and fascinating and friendly person. And so like that the VPAK, I'm I kind of I appreciate it. It is it is the real deal. And mind you, firewood is an economy of scale, and this is on the upper end of it for production. You would have to have a serious volume business to make that worth having, because like it's expensive, but
Yep.
when you're at that level compared to all the other machines that can keep up to it, I think this one's the one to get. It uses bags, and you know how I feel about bags.
I was gonna
Um,
mention it is a
yeah,
bagger, correct?
it
So,
is a bagger. It doesn't shrink wrap or stretch wrap. It can use boxes too.
oh,
But I'm
okay.
just saying at that volume, at that level, I think it has separated itself from all the other machines. That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
because it is a one person machine, which I thought was kind of a dubious um, a claim. But while I was out there and looked at it and I got to tinker around with it, it is a one person machine. So some of these other machines are cheaper, but in order for them to reach their full true capacity, you got to have a bigger crew, 4, 5, 6 people, and that's payroll,
Yeah.
labor. And if you're trying to leverage technology and machines to be a profitable firewood business, wow, I think the VPAC is legit.
So so one person can like load up like what, a big hopper, load it all
Yep,
up, and then just it automates. It's automated, and
yep,
one person just can run the whole show, the whole operation, start to finish.
yeah. You
Wow.
all you would need is just fill the hopper up with firewood, and then you flip the switch, and like you remember the famous I Love Lucy episode with the conveyor belt and the chocolates where she couldn't keep up with it, and
Yeah.
it was just it was just a famous episode where she's like shoving chocolates in her pockets and stuff because she couldn't keep up. It doesn't do that. It paces itself with the person filling the bag. So, and then I also thought too, wow, this one person, you're going to just be run ragged, but you're not. Once you fill the bag, the machine starts to work. And then when the what, I can't remember what they call it. I kept calling it the hopper, but the hopper is where all the big piles of firewood gets dumped into. It's the head. Once that is filled up, you stick your bag underneath it and step on the pedal, and it fills your bag up, and then it starts running again. When that head is full, it doesn't run.
It stops.
And yeah, and then like the cleaner and that path that the logs all take in single file, they all work independently too. Um, so like it's never like overflowing or just shooting logs out the side, or out the waste gate. It's really cool, and it works with electronic eyes and conveyor belts and that trap door, and it really works.
So
And
so one person could, so it kind of like you set the pace basically. So the person isn't trying to keep up with the machine. The
right,
machine is working at the pace of the individual bagging.
yes,
Yep.
and
Okay.
that's where I'm saying that the person who's running the machine, they're not frazzled, they're not trying to
Yeah.
keep up, because when you unload the the head into the bag, the machine like starts filling it back up. Well, you can tie shut, lay the bag on the pallet, come back, comfortably paced, get another bag, stick it over the flaps, and wait.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, you set the pace. That's
Yeah, there was that one, I can't remember the name of it. I've seen them on YouTube. It's kind of like a longer conveyor belt, and there's like two people filling the trays and putting the plastic over top of them, and it
yep.
goes through
I've
like
seen.
this propane burner, and it shrink wraps the plastic around the wood. And then there's a person on the other side that's got to pull them off and put them on pallets. It's not like that. The machine, it really just does everything.
Oh,
Um, yeah, and then from when I was watching this thing work at the Paul Bunyan show, I thought that the way the wood released into the bag, it looked like that was going to be where you're going to strain your back. Like, if you're holding a bag and all of a sudden a bunch of weight drops into it,
right.
it's going to like
Yep.
jerk your arms down. And it doesn't do that. There is zero kerplunk that that you
Huh.
feel on the bag. I was just shocked. But then, you still have to pick the bag up
Yeah.
and then set it onto a pallet. So that's the physicality of it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
interesting.
if anyone, if you haven't seen the VPAC guys, if you were to check out my YouTube channel, I introduced it. Well, this episode's coming out Wednesday, so it'll be on the episode of my YouTube channel when this episode comes out on the podcast. So I kind of was teasing the machine because it kind of looked like something out of the Cat in the Hat, where the Cat in the Hat had this big contraption that he rode around town,
Yep.
or like a Rube Goldberg machine, but it it isn't. It is an elegant, beautiful, productive machine. I loved it. And the other thing, it is whisper quiet because it just works with those electric motors and compressed air. So you do
Yep.
hear like a compressed air noise when you step on that
Yep.
pedal.
That's what I was gonna say is, and it's also there's like it's he had it out there in a building, and I'm sure it was pretty quiet because there's no motors running, no engine going, nothing.
Well, it was loud this time because his building is not done and it wasn't plumbed with electricity yet. So he was running
Oh,
he had a generator running right outside the door, so that was pretty loud. And a torpedo heater because it was 12 degrees when we were there. And so that was loud, but don't be misled by that. It is a whisper quiet machine. And that's where I think too, I I believe noise, physically wears you out if you're working around a long machine for a long time.
yep.
And that's where this thing here, it's not. You just hear like some thunking of the wood and the clunking of the wood.
Huh.
No, no like drone of an engine or a screaming gas engine or a diesel engine.
And
Yeah.
and I know in your video last week you kind of showed and talked a little bit about it. He was cutting his wood to 12.5 inches, but that thing will do different size like bags, right?
It will. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not made for it yet. And because it's a European machine, and in Europe they use shorter wood. But that was the most interesting thing about this entire visit, and I found the VPAC very interesting. But this gets into the evolution of the firewood industry and finding your oh, I hate this word, your niche. When you find it, drilling down and becoming productive, becoming efficient, and making everything make sense to what you're doing. And the VPAC only comes right now in European sizes, so like 12 to 13 inch. They're going to make a 16-inch head for it so that it can do our length of firewood. And what Kyle, who's the owner of MK High Country Firewood, the firewood company that I was visiting while I was out there, what he accidentally learned was the shorter firewood actually makes him more profitable, more efficient, and the retailers prefer it. And
Hmm.
this is something that you don't notice when you operate at our level, us normal people. I have a wrapper, you have a bagger,
Yep.
and we got a couple accounts, or you got a roadside stand and stuff, and it just doesn't ever hit your radar screen. but man, it did his, because he was always doing 16-inch firewood. Well, he found out that the 12-inch firewood, uh, when it's bagged, it's obviously narrower. But even though they're still 7.75 cubic feet bags, 3/4 of a cubic foot, just because they're narrower but a little longer, they fit on the pallet better. He can put more bags onto a pallet, and the retailers prefer that because their shelving space, there were 1 foot bags width, and they just fit perfectly. He could even wind up putting more bags, more rows on a shelf, because you can put 4 rows of a 4-foot section on a shelf if your
Mm,
firewood is 12 inches long, versus 3 rows of
16.
16-inch, because
Yeah.
now you're at 4 foot.
Right.
Yeah. So I just find that fascinating. And then that gets me into, the whole innovation and the evolution of the firewood industry. And those are the kind of things that are out there, these little surprises, these unintended consequences that actually wind up being better for everyone. you know
Yeah.
yeah, and in this episode that'll be coming out on Wednesday, we talk about that at length. And that is where, a machine like that, the VPAC, I think it has a very bright future in the United States, simply because it can redefine, when you get to that volume, it can redefine the industry, you know, and here in the United States, because this is going on and been going on for a while in Europe. But
Yeah.
when you think of the semis, the 53-foot semi truck, and then however long, the trailer, and how wide they are, and the pallets and the packing, and and just how much extra you can get put on, it just seems like it wouldn't matter. But when you are at that volume, like he's, at 50,000 bags a month,
Who?
it adds up, man. Yeah,
Holy
it
moly.
it adds up.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
it's just one of those things of like getting away from the mentality of always doing something the same way just because that's the way it's always been done.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
people are always stuck on the 16-inch, obvious for measuring, but you had mentioned that the bags were still 0.75 cubic feet. It's just that the
Yeah.
pieces were 12 and a half inches or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're narrower. And just that little change has, is what put him to where he is. Because what I had learned, it's not cheap running a business out there and driving a truck up a 2-mile mountain.
Right. Well, and I
It
guess,
is not cheap. Yeah.
and that would be then. So if he's getting more on a pallet, more bags per pallet, that
Uh-huh.
means probably then less trips to his wholesalers to resupply. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it all makes sense. Huh.
Yeah, he has some contracts with some convenience store chains out there, so he's always on the road delivering. And he had said that when this VPAC came in and he was doing 12-inch wood, he he cut all of his deliveries in half, because he didn't have to make that second trip to the store
Wow.
to replenish an order. And it just seemed too that in that area of the country, in Colorado and up in the mountains, like, bagged firewood is a big deal. I think it's even bigger than bulk, especially up in the mountains, where, like, I think there's a lot of townhomes and stuff, but still people have fireplaces, and they probably don't have a big area to store their firewood, or may not be allowed to.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah, it is a different. I mean, we're in the same country, but we might as well be on a different planet, because
if
nothing out
he's
there looks
moving
the way it does in Ohio.
50,000 bundles a month, definitely there are people out there interested in firewood burning.
Yeah.
Holy
Well,
moly.
he is not at that level now. He is tooling up for it.
Oh,
So his wood yard, it is just beyond comprehension on how big it was. Yeah, mine's just a little dinky thing, and he's talking about bringing in 900 semi truckloads of logs that are coming onto his land, and it starts in like
what?
2 weeks. Yeah,
How many?
900 900.
900
Some of them,
truckloads.
yeah, they're either triaxles or semis because he has his own truck, like Log Hauler Jesse has, with a crane on it to unload the trucks that don't have their own cranes. So there's some kind of reservoir with a large area of dead pine. And out there, it's called beetle kill pine. And the larger trees are used for lumber because they make beautiful lumber. It's got like this bluish gray hue through the wood. But he said that the lumber market's crashed and it's a hazard area for a forest fire. And they've been cutting all these trees down and just hauling them out. So he's got a very good deal on them. He says it's still not free because, trucking is expensive out there. It's expensive to drive a semi up a 2-mile mountain. Yeah. So his yard is just beyond, it is 187 acres. His wood yard is.
Woo!
Yeah. And it was pretty thin when I was up there, but he said that's what their whole plan had been because they had done a lot of expansion. He has been buying a bunch of machines. I've promised him I wouldn't say anything about him, but he's got some processors coming in.
Oh
and
boy.
The cleaners and conveyors, a conveyor system he's going to do to get the wood into that building so he doesn't have to open up the garage doors in 0-degree weather. In the wintertime, he's going to have little holes cut in it for the conveyors to come through.
Mm-hmm.
And and so there is some type of like I don't know what the word is. It's some kind of a government zone that they made where they're mitigating a potential disaster, I guess, by moving out all these beetle kill, and they're reforesting the areas where they all come from. So that's his wood supply coming in, and his sales are increasing. And now he is also the United States importer of the VEPAK. They used to just be imported into Canada, and then they had to come across the border. So they're streamlining so that it's easier to sell and get distributed in the United States, and he's going to be the importer of them.
Holy cow. So this guy he's no hobbyist.
He is the opposite of a hobbyist. He's the opposite of me. I mean, gee whiz. Okay, so I have a business. I sell firewood, but I'm Mickey Mouse compared to this guy, And he's young, he's ambitious, he is fearless, and he's a gentleman. He was a very nice man while I was out there. And my gosh, that the area of the country that he lives in, the scenery that, those peaks that you saw at the beginning of my video, he looks at those every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just gorgeous.
That
Leadville, that whole part of the country is just that. Leadville, that's a special town. If you haven't been there before, good heavens.
But I would never have thought of Colorado to be like a huge firewood producing area like that. I don't know why, just for some reason, it seems strange to me.
These are the things you don't notice unless you're in firewood. All right. So I'm flying in on the airplane, and the lady next to me kept the blind down the whole time, so I couldn't see anything out. But when we were coming in for a landing, they tell you have to keep all your blinds up, And so she raises it, and I'm looking out, and it looks like a desert out there. There's no trees. There's no trees at all. And, all the grass that was once green is now brown. It looks like a desert. There's no trees. So then he comes to pick me up when we go up into the mountains, and I get to his place. There's no trees. And then you look off in the distance, and there's these big rocky mountains. There's no trees on them. You're above the tree line. And I was thinking, well, where in the heck are all the trees? But there are at certain levels. There's like a bunch of. It's mostly, I guess it is all softwood, pine and spruce. Yeah, pine, and I can't remember the name of the species that he said that were out there.
Ponderosa pine and
ponderosa and lodgepole pine, and then something else.
Douglas fir, maybe a little fir.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said in an earlier episode, all pine trees are pine trees in my eyes, it seems. Yeah.
Well, and the way they grow out there, they all grow just straight up, long logs. Everything is
Yes.
huge. I mean,
Well, the wood that he had, in log form out there, they were straight as can be, just
yep.
gorgeous. I was thinking, gosh, my Yappa would make mincemeat out of these things. Oh boy, it'd be nice to have all that straight wood like that. Yeah, but I cannot get my brain around 900 truckloads of
Yeah.
logs.
You sure it wasn't 900 logs?
Yeah, but I
Because that would
have,
be a lot.
yeah, I get 5 truckloads on my land, and I'm, sweating it out and wonder if I'm going to go broke.
Wow.
And I definitely don't have the room. And holy cow, his place is just enormous.
Man. Yeah, I could not
Yeah,
imagine that many logs coming in and then running them all through a processor. And then from the processor, does he season them or does it
he's gonna
straight into the
he's gonna
bundler?
have multiple processors.
But I mean, the logs that he gets are pretty much ready to burn as is, so he doesn't have to like set the wood aside to season.
Yes, yes. I was shocked. Okay. I mean, this gets back into, here in the East with standing dead ash. Oh, the people say, oh, you can split that and it's already seasoned. And, you know, spoiler alert, it isn't seasoned.
Yeah.
you know, put your moisture meter on is reading 35%. Okay. Whatever. Call it whatever you want. It's not seasoned. Out there, because he had a log on his processor, and it was as dry as any wood I have ever seen, just bone dry.
Hmm.
And it wasn't like wasted either, or punky or rotted or
Yeah.
anything. It was just hard as a rock. I mean, it was softwood, pine, just hard, dry, dead.
Jeepers.
Yeah.
So he can
Uh-huh.
just split and bag.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where I don't know how, people were saying, well, Joe, I think this is the direction you should go. And I was like, yeah, but out here, you got to have a kiln, man.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah.
have all of that wood, and he's moving it so fast. It's not like wood that's going to sit around. It's not. He's processing it, and it's going to sit around for a year or 6 months, and then he's going to bag it. I mean, it is processed, dumped into his machine, and it's bagged and gone, man.
Yeah,
And
and you would never be
you
able to sell pine here. You can't sell pine. What do you think? What pine isn't firewood?
yeah. There's been a lot of houses in this country heated with pine. you know. Yeah, I don't know. That's everything out there is just different. And then he's got rules that he has to work under about how the logs are kept on his land. He has to have a 6,000 gallon or 600, I can't remember now, a big cistern it has to be buried under the ground so it doesn't freeze up, in case he catches on fire, and he's
Yeah.
got all kinds of regulations. He's got a big crew of people too, which did not appear anywhere in any of my videos because they had such a mad rush with this project and getting all of the machines and that building built, and he's just given everyone a break. So no one's been working. And when these logs start rolling in, I guess it's all hands on deck.
It's gonna be back to work.
Yeah. That was
Holy
really
cow.
cool, I mean, it's always cool to go into any person's firewood business, just look and see how they
Yeah.
do it, and look at all
Yep.
their machines and stuff, and that is just beyond my level of comprehension. Because we had walked from his new building, I mean, it was probably like a half a mile, it felt like, walking in that thin air, you know? And we were standing by, he had bought mesquite from Texas that got trucked in, and he had some Eastern hardwoods that got trucked in because he sells those for specialty. And I said, so is this like the far end of your property? And he pointed, and it was beyond as far as your eye could see, because the ground kind of like went off the edge a little bit. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how far this is,
You're
how
like, we're
big
not
it was.
walking down there. I've seen enough. Let's turn around.
No, you'd have never heard from me again. I had to keep one eye closed while I was up there as I was seeing double the whole time. at altitude, that is for real. Um, you know, you can't feel it, just your lungs can. You're just doing your normal,
Just your
you know,
body.
yeah, you stand up and you got to take, I call it a stress breath, you know, where you got to like take a deep breath, you know, where you can just feel your ribs spreading apart, just trying to get air. He said like the 7-Elevens, I guess, out there, they got oxygen in them, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, for people that struggle up there, and I guess the urgent cares and stuff, that's one of their big things, is because it's a tourist kind of a town too. The flatlanders come in and they get sick up there.
Well, that sounds like a heck of a trip. It sounds like you had a good time, and the VPAC sounds very interesting. I can't wait to see
Yeah.
your video.
So yeah, I don't want this to come off wrong, but I think this maybe should even go without saying. You know, the VPAC isn't for everyone, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but um, it is there because that is where the industry, and for companies that scale, um, that's where it's waiting for you. And that's what Kyle started selling bundles. He sold duct taped bundles. They wrapped their bundles with duct tape.
Oh my goodness.
And then he went to the hand cranks. He had a number of these hand crank stretch wraps. Well, then he said he went to twine, and then he went to the hand cranks. He said they tied so many twine strings that their fingers had no skin left on them.
I can imagine that would
Yeah.
not be fun.
And then to the hand cranks, and then to these VPACs. And he says that VPAC, just one of those, you know, just he could do 10 times as much with just one person. And he has people that he likes to run the processor the most, but he says he's got people that run his processor. He has a lady that's one of his best runners, operators of the processor. And he says, because he's got 2 of the VPAC machines, and he does it with 3 people. So there's an operator on each machine, and then he has a third person that keeps the wood dumped in, and, you know, moves the pallets around when the pallets get full.
Yep.
When I was there and he was just screwing around, we were talking, it was 4 bags in 1 minute.
Whew.
So, you know, so can you keep that up physically? You know, the wood can get jammed every now and then, or you run out of wood, you know, you got to go start up the loader and dump the wood in again, that kind of stuff. But in a perfect world, it's there waiting for you.
Wow. That
Uh-huh.
is definitely yeah, like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing your video of it, in operation and
Yeah, I
all the
did
moving
my
parts.
best. Yeah, I got up on a ladder and was just showing um the wood, you know, the path that it follows and all. And that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot about, I said this about the Paul Bunyan show. I don't even think you need to have an interest in firewood. It's just fun, you know, watching these machines and stuff. And this thing here it's pretty slick.
Now, did you ask the question that if they've designed and they've built this machine called the VPAC, when are we going to get the V stack?
Yeah. Yeah. So that is funny you say that, because when I was looking at that, that was in the back of my head,
Yes.
because it takes a jumbled mess of sticks, and it cleans and sorts them and puts them into a single file and drops them through a trap door,
Right. Now
you know?
you make it mobile where it can just move ahead a little bit and drop another stack, move ahead, drop another stack.
Yes.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
All right.
I like that. So I have gotten to know Oli, the owner of VPAC, and then Morton, I call him Morty. He was out there too. And it was just, you know, I'm starting to get to know these guys. So I think I'm going to take them out to dinner one night and bring that up,
Yes,
because, yeah,
I think you need to.
there
Yep.
is a need for the V stack.
The V stack.
Yeah. But this machine though, you know, so it's made in Norway, and I had seen it even before I was a YouTube channel, there's a video of it, and it's kind of fun to watch. And I had always said, when I remember even watching firewood processors on YouTube before I got to where I am now, I was thinking, God, I'd never be able to afford one of these, or I've never have a need for it. Just seemed like it was just so far out of reach. And then you look at someone like Kyle Crawford from MK High Country Firewood, who started with duct tape and twine. And, he said he's been doing it for 9.5 years, and look where he's at.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That is, okay. The machine's super cool. I mean, super cool. Kyle is super cool. And I'm proud to call him a friend now. He's just a very nice man. But then the implications to the firewood industry, to me, is what really got me fired up while I was out there, because, just the things so these national retailers are, until you work with one in like middle to upper management, I'm here to tell you, these guys, it is a science. Everything that they do is for a reason. You may walk into a Dollar General and just see like some boxes with junk on the shelf, but the distribution, the warehousing, the merchandising is just this calculated, methodical, and then scientifically based process. It is. When I worked for that auto parts chain, they were leveraging their vendors about the kind of boxes and the size boxes that they were getting, so that they could put multiple items, put more merchandise on the shelves. Because to them, it is expensive real estate, and
Yep.
they want to have as much on there as they could possibly get. And here you go. An unintended consequence of a European style packaging machine that is not bagging American style firewood. But then the aha moment, and he's saying that this is the way to go. These retailers love it. And then when he's making these sales calls now to these larger retailers, that's the selling point.
Yeah, when you walk into, some of these stores, convenience stores, or even the big box stores, I think a lot of times you just take for granted. You don't realize what all is going on behind the scenes and all the little, steps along the way for product to get to the shelf, and the thought that goes into it. And the
Yeah, no
planning.
doubt.
Oof.
I was reading, like with Walmart's distribution, the for stores in Ohio versus stores in Arizona, obviously, winter wipers and ice scrapers, go to Ohio, and sunscreen and shaded umbrellas and stuff go to Arizona. But like in Walmart, I mean, they have it down to the weather. When there's weather changes, if they know a big storm's coming a week in advance, their distribution is able to divert a bunch of generators, to different parts of the country, because there might be power outages, that kind of stuff. Um, that is, I'm serious. I'm always, you don't ever hear me say nice things about the national retailers for a lot of reasons. But the one thing that is fascinating is that the way that they move product and the way that they're able to sell it. And this, this simple guy, Kyle from Leadville, Colorado, had just stumbled into the fact that 12-inch firewood had that big of an impact on his sales. It's just, I
Pretty
just find that
crazy.
stuff.
Yeah.
I do.
Fascinating.
I can't stress that enough.
Yep.
Mhm.
Well, I thought you were going to say there for a second, the VPAC is super cool. Kyle is super cool. I, however, did not fit in with either of those two things. Which of these things is not like the other?
Yeah. Uh-huh. But isn't that neat, though, that there could be two people with two different business models, and that they're both, well, I'll say quasi successful for me, that they can both be profitable and both make a living out of it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I think the firewood industry is such a cool place. And that's where I get annoyed when people badmouth another person because they do it different.
Right.
Different
I was
isn't
just
that.
I was just
Yeah.
going to say, and do it in different ways, different paths. That's the key. Yep.
Yeah. We can all be different, but we can all be successful.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think to be different and successful on ending this show, I'm going to say strike up the band. And instead of you saying strike up the band, and then we want to thank everyone for tuning in to the #1 firewood podcast in the world.
Yeah. Well, while I was out of town for the entire week, all I could think of, I can't wait till we record this episode and I can say, let's strike up the band. Now you've taken that from me.
I've taken it. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So we want to thank everyone for tuning in to the Woodhounds. You can find us on all of the major streaming services and on our own website, thewoodhounds.com.
There you go. All right, Joe. Well, you better rest up and recover from that jet lag and the altitude, whatever.
Yeah.
Oxygen.
No jet lag, just oxygen deprivation.
Deprivation. All right. Well, with that, Joe, I'm gonna say, be
cool.
Stay
below 10,000 feet elevation because you can't breathe when you're up there.
Good tip.
Yes.
And have
have a great day.